לך אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לעשות בדברי תורה. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandment and has commanded us to be engaged in the words of the Torah. O Lord our God, we ask that you make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouth, in the mouth of your entire people of the greater house of Israel. May we, our descendant, the descendant of your people of the greater house of Israel, know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, O Lord, who teach us Torah to Israel. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who chose us from all the people to give us his Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah. Okay, so we're going to do another installment of the prophecies of Daniel. I hope it's been interesting. And today, we will go to chapter 8. Chapter 8, which stands, as the third installment. We did Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, and each one builds upon itself. You see, Daniel 7, in the third column of the slide, starting from left, added specifics to Daniel 2 by revealing specifics to the time of the Antichrist. That was good. But Daniel 8, in the fourth column of the slide, reveals specific to a time 150 years before Yeshua, the time of the Maccabee revolt, Chanuka, which is the time which Yeshua used to teach us about our own end time. Okay, so I thought it was pretty neat that today we're doing the chapter that deals with Hanukkah. We didn't do it on purpose. I wish I could say I planned it for you. Okay, so as usual, it's going to be easy because the text of Daniel 8 provides us with the vision Daniel had and as well with the interpretation. It's easy. You just have to read it. You know, there's nothing wrong with the Bible. So few people have read it. So as we had in Daniel 7, this chapter will give us even more specifics to help us identify this Antichrist. But I want to bring a small specification to that word, Antichrist, because Antichrist doesn't mean against Christ. The word in Hebrew is Sheker Mashiach. Sheker Mashiach means lying Messiah. Not because he's a liar, but the word to translate it would be counterfeit Messiah. Counterfeit Messiah. So it's really important because a counterfeit is a very good lookalike, so it can deceive people, like a counterfeit $100 bill. Okay, we get to that a little bit more later. So now we're going to start with Daniel 8. We're going to start with this chart of the Babylonian kings. You know, so and in Daniel 8:1 it says after that first vision of Daniel 7. Oh, by the way, be ready to take a couple of QR codes. There's a lot of information that you can have, but it's a QR code. So after that vision, that first vision of Daniel 7, it was in the third year of King Belshazzar that another vision appeared to me. So we learn about this blasphemous king in Daniel 5. You know, last week we talked about it, Belshazzar, the last one. You know, so he's the one who couldn't read the handwriting on the wall. So this expression, the handwriting on the wall, has become a part of English vernacular. It means that we are warned, but we don't see the warning. So many times, like King Belshazzar, we need someone like Daniel to interpret the warnings that Hashem puts in the walls of our lives. So, Now, the vision of the 7th chapter of Daniel was on the first year of this king. But the vision Daniel 8 is on the 3rd year. It's not important in itself, except to give us a timeline of the event, 2 years. So here is the area, because he said he was in the area of, he's saying what in Daniel 2, he says where he was. Shushan, the name Shushan that you see somewhere is Susa. Do you see Shushan? Is there Shushan here? Susa, yeah. Shushan in the Bible. It's a city of Susa above Elam. Babylon, that you see, is in Iraq. Elam was part of Media, which was a kingdom that was part of Persia, which was Iraq. And Daniel 8:2 says, I looked into the vision, and as I looked, I found myself in Shushan, the capital of the province of Elam. And I looked into the vision, and I was by the Ulai Canal. They had a canal. Daniel was not in Babylon, the capital, at that time when he had that vision. He was a governor of some sort, so he used to travel. He was in Shushan. There in Shushan, he had a vision. So now we're going to go through the vision that he had. I looked up, and as I watched there in front of the stream stood a ram with 2 horns. The horns were long, but one was longer than the other. And the longer one came up later. I saw the ram pushing to the west, north, and south, and no animals could stand up against him, nor was there anyone that could rescue from his power. So it did as it pleased, and became very strong. Okay, that's what he saw. This ram with a horn higher than the other. Then, I was beginning to understand. We'll get to the interpretation. We're just getting the story out now. I was beginning to understand when a male goat came from the west, passing over the whole earth without touching the ground, very fast. The goat had a prominent horn between its eyes, and it approached. And the ram with it approached the ram with the 2 horns, which I had seen standing in front of the river, and charged it with a savage force. I watched as it advanced on the ram, filled with rage against it, and struck the ram, breaking the 2 horns. The ram was powerless to stand against it. It threw the ram to the ground and trampled it down, and there was no one that could rescue it from the goat's power. Whoa. So we understand what's happening. A ram having his own way with everything, and see the he-goat comes to him and gives him a reality check. Now, we're going to get a bit more specific now. We're going to talk about horns again. The male goat then became extremely strong. But when it was strong, the big horn was broken, and in its place arose what appeared to be 4 horns in the direction of the 4 winds of Adam. Out of one of them came a little horn, which grew extremely big in the direction of the southeast and the direction of the glory. It grew so great that it reached the armies of heaven. It hurled some of the army and the stars to the ground and trampled on them. Okay, I will read the next passage to just get the vision of what's going on, the baseline of the story, and then we'll go into the interpretation. Yes, it even considered itself as great as the prince of the army. The regular burnt offering was taken away from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. Through sin, the army was put in its power, along with the regular burnt offering. It flung truth on the ground as it acted and prospered.
When you say it, you're talking about the goat.
Yeah, I'm just reading the text. Then I heard the Holy One speaking. He heard the Holy One speaking. And another Holy One said to the speaker, 2 people from the vision who are talking to each other, and Daniel is privy to the conversation. How long will the events of the vision last? This vision concerning the regular offering and the transgression, which is so appalling that allows the sanctuary and the army to be trampled underfoot. The first said to me, 2,300 evenings and mornings. It's not 2,300 days. It's 2,000 evenings and mornings. Okay? After which the sanctuary will be restored to its rightful state. Okay, that was a lot of details. Let's see what it all means. So, I want you to read the passage here from again, like in Daniel 7, it is somebody from the vision who explains to Daniel what the vision means. So, after that, after I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was trying to understand it, suddenly there stood in front of me someone who appeared to be a man. Someone who appeared to be a man. I heard a human voice calling from between the banks of the Ulai, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. Gabriel is an archangel. So we have somebody who looks like a man who has authority over the archangel to tell him what to do. I wonder who that is. He came up where I was standing, and his approach was so terrified that I fell on my face. But he said to me, human being, understand that the vision refers to the time of the end. So, whereas, when we look into history, the events that he talks about, this little horn out of one of the horns, and we'll talk about it with it all. These events really happened 250 years after Daniel, that also did apply to the time of the end. And that is why Yeshua used them when he was asked, tell us what shall be the sign of the end. We're going to go over that. So, okay, so next, what do we see is that Daniel falls into a big sleep with my face towards the ground. But the man touched him, set me on my feet, and said, I'm going to explain to you what will happen at the end of the period of fury, because the vision has to do with the time in the end. So he sees this man who tells Gabriel, and as he was speaking, Daniel falls in a big sleep. But he, I believe that's the man from the text, touched him and says, you got to understand. So I just want to bring out that in Genesis 15, when God talks with Abraham, he's making a contract with him. We talked about that. But during that contract where Abraham is supposed to be a participant, God puts him to sleep too. And in Daniel puts him to sleep too. And I don't know why, I don't know if it means anything particular, but I do know one thing. Is that when we sleep, when we go to sleep, we surrender our spirit. We stop moving. We stop thinking. We stop being rational. We stop thinking in these terms, and our dreams take us places. Whoa! And I heard somebody say one time, dreams is taking us to experience things that we could not experience in the physical world or in the rational mind. And it teaches us sometimes. But we surrender, and it might be a lot easier for God to convey to us information in our sleep, because we're not there to say, but. We're not there to try to rationalize and with our carnal mind. It's easier for God to talk to us when we don't have the power to rationalize in our carnal mind and where we're only open to things that are possible. God doesn't live in our world. So now, let's see the prophecy. Okay, so we read that about the goat, and he says, you saw a ram with two horns, which are the kings of Media and Persia. Okay, there's no guess here. It's the king of Media and Persia, which would be the kingdom. When Daniel got that, it was still under Babylon, the last king. It was the last year of that king. But he probably knew that something was brewing and the war was coming. then that's it, we're done. Something's happening. So the angel tells him, well, this is the king of Media and Persia. So and here we're going to go back to our three visions here. So it said the ram with the two horns, with one higher than the other, is the kingdom of Media Persia. One higher than the other because the Persians were more the military force, strength. The Medians were more the administrative. So that's simple. We don't really have to. On the other vision, you see it's color coded. It was the bear with one shoulder above the other, one higher, and he had three ribs in his mouth. From the three previous kingdoms that he conquered: Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. So he conquered all that. So it's easy. We just have to read the book, and then the text continue, and he says the shaggy male goat is the king of Greece. Okay, and the prominent horn between its eyes is its first king. You just have to go to a history book. Who is the first major king of Greece? Alexander. It's we just have to see the text. So here again we go back to our sun. It's color coded. Color coded. It's the orange kind of a thing there, which was the belly of the man of the first statue. Greece was very the belly and the thighs. Greece was very sensual and spiritual, which is the imagery of this area of the body. Then the second one on Daniel 7 was a leopard, one of the fastest animals on earth. Not the fastest, but one of the fastest. But even 4 wings, he is really fast. And Alexander conquered the world of his day in 10 years. 10 years. He started at the age of 22, finished at the age of 32. So it was very fast. But then you see, the leopard got 4 heads. So we'll talk about that. Just like the goat, the shaggy goat. He had one horn that was broken, and then he grew into 4 horns. So 4 heads, 4 horns. See the pictures, they go together. Okay, now we're going to go on a little bit of a rabbi trail. Here's a story about Alexander when he came to conquer Jerusalem. From the book of Josephus. The people were fretting in Jerusalem. They were wondering what to do. The priests prayed, and Hashem showed the high priest that they should. They didn't have to raise an army. It's quite saying something. The war is coming, and the priest goes to the king and says, don't raise an army. Okay? But that the priest should put on their festive robes and receive Alexander as the king that he is. Alexander was invited in, and when the high priest showed him the book of Daniel, especially those passages from Daniel 7 and Daniel 8 that refer to Alexander, Daniel 8, right? Written about 200 years before Alexander was doing that. He saw that, he felt like, basically the high priest told him, see what you're doing? It's in our books. God told us, you're actually exactly doing what God has planned for you. So then when he heard that, he decided not to conquer Jerusalem. There is also a story that says, one of his generals asked him, oh, come on, Alexander, you're not going to conquer that. This thing is one of the richest temples in the area. Money, gold, everything. You're not going to go there? Why? And Alexander, it is said that Alexander answered him, because I saw that man in my dream last night, talking about the high priest. So those are pretty important things. The Talmud, there's books of Jewish fantastic tales about King Solomon, but there is a lot of them about Alexander when he stayed in Jerusalem, the things he learned, the things he did, a lot of fantastical tales. So I want you to take quick words Oh, I thought I had put. Okay, I'll give you that page afterward. There is a QR code with the stories I'm telling you. Okay, I'll put it here. Sorry, I thought I put it in the slide. Silly. Okay, so here's the interpretation of the whole thing. The shaggy male goat is the king of Greece, and the prominent horn between his eyes is his first king. As for the horns that broke and the four which rose up in his place, 4 kingdoms will arise out of his destination, but not with the power the first king had. Okay? So that's when looking at history helps here. I'm going to put this here for you to take the QR code. So, of course, the first king was Alexander. The story goes that after 10 years, Alexander had conquered the whole known world of his day. But Alexander's goal was not conquest or power. A lot of the decisions that he made, he focused on money or certain things because it was not about power and being rich. It was a cultural conquest. Up to now, dominance came from south and east. Egypt, Assyria, from where we stand at least. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Middle Persia, even more further east. But now, it goes west, Greece. So here, how it's happening. Oh, didn't I put it? Yeah. You see, yeah. So here you have your map. You see Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Those are the 3 sons of Noah. Okay. In Genesis 10, it tells us where the sons of Noah ended up. And the reason we know that is because we have a list in Genesis 10 of all the names of the children and grandchildren of the sons of Noah. And the names in Hebrew are actually names of countries. So it's like saying that Ham had a son called Egypt, and a son called Ethiopia, then a son called Chad, and a son called Sudan. And Shem had a son called China, a son called Arabia, and a son called Israel, and a son called, it's like saying that. And Japheth had a son called Greece, a son called Russia, a son called... It's really like that. Some of these names are still used today, like Persia. A lot of names have changed. But to know the original name of a country helps you understand Bible prophecy. So before, the kingdoms of the world were under Ham, because Egypt, the first kingdom was Egypt. After that, it went to Shem, Assyria, Babylon, Persia. Okay? But now we have a shift. It's coming from Greece, Japheth. And it was a very, I call personally in ancient history, I call the conquest of the world by Greece, I call it the Renaissance of the ancient world. Maybe not the Renaissance. It totally changed. This is where democracy gets found. This is where a lot of stuff happens. Okay, so the trend moved westward, and we have now the dominant power of the descendants of Japheth who occupied Europe and northward towards Russia. The Caucasian Greeks felt that the rest of the world, brown and black, were not civilized enough. They considered them barbarians. Much like the British Empire. There's a man called Cecil John Rhodes, the founder of Rhodesia in Africa. He was in the parliament. Personally, I think he's the father of white supremacy. If you look at his quote, he says, the white man's burden, the Christian white man's burden is to civilize the rest of the world, or something like that. It's like it was, but the Greeks really felt that the rest of the world was that they had, and they had something to bring probably, but not in that spirit. So it's sad to say. So he really wanted to do that. He wanted the rest of the world to be conformed to the Greek value system, and he wanted it so much that at the end of his life he was going to actually marry a Persian princess in order to really mix the cultures and be the dominant power that through the birth canal takes over. This is where the four generals disagreed. They said, we do not want to mess with the purity of the Greek blood. Early Aryans, pure race. Whereas history records said that Alexander died drunk somewhere in Persia, some also proposed that one of his generals poisoned him. So, but what we do know is that he didn't have any children to lead his kingdom to. So upon his deathbed, his four generals asked him, to whom should your kingdom go? You have no children. You know, when you're busy conquering the world, you don't have the time to raise a family. So Alexander foolishly replied, to the strongest, thus possibly pitting his whole kingdom into a civil war between four generals. So, but after Alexander died, the generals, they said, in that case, we're not going to do that. Let's divide this kingdom in four. So you see the four section, Ptolemy, this is Egypt in purple, I think. Then brown, the Greek Empire division. Seleucus is what the Seleucid king, that's in Asia, let's say. Then you had Nimacicus, which is, let's say, a part of Turkey. And then you have Greece, Cassander, that area. It goes all the way a bit to Yugoslavia. So the four, his kingdom, one horn into four horns, right? His kingdom divided by four. One leopard into four heads. The vision is very clear. It's very nice, right? God knows how to teach simply. So, so you see now, we see that the vision totally matches. Now let's go to the next part. The male goat became extremely strong. But when it was strong, the big horn was broken, and in its place arose what appeared to be four horns in the directions of the four winds of heaven. Out of one of them came a little horn which grew extremely big in the direction of the southeast, direction of glory. Out of one of them. So we must notice something very important here, because people get their horns mixed up. In Daniel 7, the little horn came by itself. It was of its own, it was by itself. In Daniel 8, it actually grows out of one horn. So we cannot, it's two different things, two different events. Basically in Daniel 8, it's horn that grows from one of the four sections of the Greek Empire. Okay, so let's see. And it says about this horn, it grew so great that it reached the army of heaven. It hurled some of the armies of the stars to the ground, trampled on them. Yet even considered itself as great as the prince of the army. The regular burnt offering was taken away from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. Through sin, the army was put in its power, along with the regular burnt offering. It flung truth on the ground and acted as it acted and prospered. So now we're going to go to the explanation of this. You see, it's important to take the explanation from the Bible before we try to do it ourselves. So, and that is in Daniel 23. It said before, the big horn was broken and four kingdoms, and everything. Now the interpretation says, in the latter part of their reigns, of these four kingdoms, okay, in the latter part of their reign, okay, the four kingdoms that came out of Alexander's empire. When the evildoers have become as evil as possible, there will arise an arrogant king skilled in intrigue. His power will be great, but not with the power of the first king had. He will be amazingly destructive, and he will succeed in whatever he does, and he will destroy the mighty and the holy ones. In this text, the mighty and the holy ones are Israel. So it doesn't say at the end of days. It says at the end of their days, these kingdoms. The latter part of their reign of these four dominions. So let's see, this king will be arrogant, skilled in intrigue, his power will be great, amazingly destructive, will succeed in whatever he does, he will destroy the mighty and the holy one. Those are very important things to remember. And remember, the prophecy part tells us that out of one of them came a little hand which was extremely big in the direction of south, east, and the direction of glory. History tells us, as well as Jewish history, about a king that grew from the eastern part, the part that's in Syria, that's the Seleucid kings, they were called. A man called Antiochus Epiphanes, who conquered from where he was, eastward, south, he went to Egypt. He conquered the book of Daniel 11, it's all about what he did. And the land of glory, it's Israel. Jeremiah calls it the land of glory. Okay, so all we have to do is read the interpretation, and we have the chance of being able to look at history backward. And then we know what's going on. So it's about Antiochus Epiphanes. And Antiochus Epiphanes, when you read his story in the book of Maccabees, which is still in Catholic Bibles, we see that he was on a personal war against Judaism and the God of Israel. It was not a political war for power. He just hated the God of Israel, somehow. So here are four things that he wanted that are quite amazing. The four things that he wanted to enact is that they... Where was that? Did I have this? I didn't have that slide. He told people, stop studying the Torah, forbade the study of Torah, stop circumcising your boys, stop observing Shabbat, stop eating kosher. So for details, again, I didn't do that, but I will have another QR code where you find that whole story. Okay, and I'll put it here and I can use it. So, well, without getting too deep into that, I heard a teacher say one time that these are the four things that, let's say, as a Jewish believer, say, oh, I found Yeshua is the Messiah of Israel. Okay, I want to find a good church to join. What happened? What is he told? The Torah is irrelevant. It's abolished. You don't need to study it. You don't need to circumcise your boys. We don't have somebody to do that for you. You don't need to. And you don't need to observe Shabbat. Sunday is the day. And you don't need to eat kosher. We eat ham on Passover, Easter.
No, honey, Christmas.
Christmas, okay.
Ham.
Yeah, I don't know. And he's told that if you do these things, you actually deny the cross of Messiah, using the misconstrued verse from Galatians. I think Galatians. So this is pretty intense here, so I don't want to go further into details. But you see, this is what happens here. Resistance is futile. So the king actually went on a rampage to assimilate Jews into a Jewish culture through intense persecution and torture. And the stuff that is said is, if you read it in First Maccabees, it's horrible. I don't want to go into it now. You read it yourself. You know. Also, in the other date, I put some material there, and one of them is a little video from Chabad, the Miracle Lights or something. Make sure to watch them. You know. So, but this event is what we owe the feast of Chanuka. So I won't go too much into Hanukkah. We'll talk about it when we get together. But it's from that event that it goes. So Also the gather date includes this week includes the Lamentav house free Hebrew Chanuka booklet. Make sure to open it. There's everything you need to know there on how to light the candles and how to do this and the stories and all kind of stuff about it. So Lamentav house is a very good publishing house. So you can get this stuff. So, okay, let's go to the next part about him. But this time to make it easier, I took it from the KJV. You know, people they make different versions, and every time they deal with copyrights, there's no copyrights on the KJV. But if you write a Bible, you cannot use the same wording as another one, or you run into copyright. I don't know how you can copyright God's word. I don't get it, but you know, it's His to start with. And the people have died to give it to people for free, then people are copywriting to make money off of it. I don't know how that works. He magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and he cast down truth to the ground, and practiced and prospered. So, taking it simply, this is about Antiochus Epiphanes, how he obeyed daily offering. You know the daily offering, morning and evening. He desecrated the temple by bringing an idol there and having a bed sacrificed on it. And he was prosperous at spreading lies and negating the truth. So, now in the text, in verse 13, the heavenly conversation continues. It says, I heard one saint speaking, and another saint say, unto certain saint which spake. So a saint, just don't want to go too far into this, but we're not talking about an angel here. You know, we're not talking about an angel, he's calling saints. Saints are people who have lived on earth. You know, it's talking about departed saints. Who they are, that's the word that's used, not angel, not malachi. And it says, how long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to be put the sanctuary and the oath to be trodden underfoot? He said, 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So there is a timing there from Daniel of how long this whole thing's going to go on. You know, it must not be nice for the children of Israel of the day to have a little blueprint in the book of Daniel, you know, those who want to follow God, of course, to say, well, you know, this guy has his day coming. You know, to know that there is a time it's going to stop helps you go through it. And to know that actually there is a plan, that God talked about it before, so that it's not random, helps us go through it. It's like if you were, you know, great tribulation is compared to being in labor. Okay? I think some of you have been in labor before. Okay? It's hard. It hurts. It's the hardest work a woman would ever do. So I heard. I believe it. I was with her. But you know that there's an end to it. If you didn't know there was an end to it, you wouldn't be able to do it. But you know there's an end. Not only there is an end, but a beautiful end. You know, I mean, a woman goes through that, she screams, she cusses, she and then give her the baby, she's, oh! You know, it's like, that's what it is. Great persecution, kingdom of God. You know, that's the analogy that we give. Okay, so it gives them a time. Now, here's the interpretation for this. You just have to put it together. That's what I tried to do. It took me about 5 hours to do this whole thing. And through his policy, he shall also cause craft to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify himself in his heart and be proud. He thinks that he's great. And by peace he'll destroy many. Whoa. By peace, destroy many. Makes me think of a diplomat. He shall also, or politician. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes. He's going to stand against Yeshua. But he shall be broken without hand. Now in history, the Antiochus Epiphanes, he didn't die from the sword of somebody, because I think sickness. I think he got nuts, got crazy. He just died. Sickness. We're broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true of morning and evening sacrifice being stopped. Wherefore thou shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. So without going into minutiae of details, here's the story of Daniel 8, Chanuka in a nutshell. There is this king who uses persecution to forbid us to worship Hashem. Okay? Forbidden is not harassment. Some people feel like, well, I can't serve God because the law. Harassment is harassment. We've never been promised not to be harassed. It says, the world shall have trouble. But against the law, that's different. He sets up an idol in the temple called the transgression that is so appalling. In all the Bibles, it is called the abomination of desolation. And I will keep that term. The abomination of desolation, which was the idol in the temple, sacrificing the pig in front of an idol on the altar of the Lord. He desecrates the temple, forbids Jewish worship for over 3 years. The Jewish army rises, wins the war, the temple is Chanukkah, rededicated, and we have the story of the multiplication of the oil. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. So why is it important? Because when the disciples asked the $1 million question, when shall these things be? When are they going to happen? What is the sign of your coming? And that the Olam Hazeh, this age, is finishing. Yeshua answered in relation to that story. The story of the persecution of Antiochus Epiphanes, which prompted the Maccabee revolt and the rededication of the temple. He says, when you see, he gave many signs, I went over them before, signs that have been happening for 2,000 years. Many people said Messiah, wars, earthquakes, pestilences. What's new? It's been going on since that time. But this one hasn't happened yet. It couldn't happen. There was not even a country of Israel. There was, and much less Jerusalem, much less a temple, which we still don't have. So, but they have dedicated an altar as so. It is about, when you see the abomination that causes desolation spoken about through the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand the allusion to Daniel 8. You see? So, they're here, 2,000 years ago. They ask a question about here. They say, oh, you remember what happened 150 years ago with the Chanuka rebellion? The thing that Daniel talked about in Daniel 8? When you see that happen here, that's your sign. I told you to start this class to show you, well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. This is the sign. This is it. As believers, of course, that's what we look for. That's what we look for. So when we think Antichrist, like I said, look at Google, who is the Antichrist, you find everybody from Trump to Obama to the Pope to the King of England. Everybody. But when you think about the Antichrist, now we're getting from Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, we get a whole list of, we get a profile. He uses persecution to forbid the worship of Hashem. He sets up an idol in the temple. He desecrates the temple. So for all that, you've got to have at least a priesthood, an altar, a functioning something in the temple, even if it's not all built. He forbids Jewish worship for 3 years. The Jewish army rises, wins the war. The temple is Chanukkah. Now, what did we learn in Daniel 7? He speaks great words against the Most High, talks against Hashem. He wears out the saints, persecutes believers. He thinks to change times and laws. Again, Caesar did that already. And they shall be given into his hand for 3.5 years. And his blasphemy will last 3.5 years or 42 months. See, we put together the Daniel thing and Revelation thing, and we get a profile, we get a picture. We need to get a house before we put the furniture and the details. Then put the foundation and then build the house. After that, we can worry about what the month, the years, and who's that one and that one. First, let's build a house. Okay. Yeshua was in Jerusalem during the times of Chanuka. He says, there was a sermon that he gave, a midrash that he gave, starting in John 8. And this midrash stops at John 10. He starts with, I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but have the light that gives light. What a perfect midrash for Hanukkah, the festival of light. So he continues with the good shepherd and bad kings. Herod was a bad king. If you read this text with the political situation of Israel, Yeshua was under, it makes so much sense to say all these things during Hanukkah. And in the end, it says, at that time, the feast of dedication took place in Jerusalem, and it was winter. So he went to Jerusalem for Hanukkah, and if you want to know, there's all kind of historians that tell they had giant Hanukkah. They used the old clothes of the priests to make big wicks, filled it up with oil. Some people say, it's written in books that you could see Jerusalem was a bright light you could see from the Mediterranean Sea on a clear day. A light, a city built on a hill. So I will end with this one point. Counterfeit Messiah is like a counterfeit $100 bill. It looks and acts so much like the original that it can fool even the believers. Okay? It's very, people whose job it is to detect counterfeit $100 bills, they're not out there learning all the ways that you can make a fake $100 bill. They only learn one thing. Only one thing. They learn about the original. The original with the paper, the consistency, the ink, the chemicals, the pictures, the design, the line, the subtleties, everything. They learn to know the original perfect, so they can't be fooled. That's what we got to do. He says the people who will be strong in those days, people who know their God. To know Yeshua, the original Yeshua, is very important. That's what we've got to know. Not all the conspiracies and the stuff that we're forgetting. Let's spend time learning about Yeshua. Because that's the only way we're protected. You see, it's important to realize that when we think about the Antichrist. He speaks like the Messiah. There's a song that says, his words are soft like honey or butter, but war is in his heart. He's a sheep, he's a wolf, he's a sheep in, how do you say?
A sheep was in clothing.
A wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf in sheep's clothing. God. He speaks like Messiah. He acts like Messiah. He's a counterfeit Messiah. He feels like Messiah. Oh, look at him. He makes people believe that he's Messiah. That is why he's called the counterfeit Messiah. Sheker in Hebrew is lie. Sheker Mashiach. So, when I give you this list, how can somebody do that can deceive believers? Well, I ask myself that question. It's very easy to answer. Somebody doing this can deceive as being Messiah. Yeah, try. No, I will tell you how. It's very easy to do it. You ready? For him to do that, he'll have no difficulties if the elect have a wrong idea of who is the Messiah. You know, if our view of Messiah is wrong, he can do that. The Jews in the days of Yeshua did not recognize that Yeshua was the Messiah because they had an erroneous idea of who the Messiah should be. So they killed him and took Barabbas. It's funny because Yeshua was the Ben Abba, the son of the Father. Barabbas means son of the Father also, but in Aramaic. You know, they took a counterfeit. He's going to say it was from the Roman Barabbas, not this specific guy. You know. So, if we have a wrong idea of who's the Messiah, it's easy, we can easily be deceived. You know, what kind of thing we could do better than the people in the days of Yeshua? Think about it. If today, an evangelical Christian, a modern Christian, Protestant, it's not even evangelical, Protestant, okay? Catholic too. He saw a man eating kosher, going to synagogue on Shabbat, fasting on Yom Kippur, re-establishing Jewish worship service in the temple, and if this man comes along and says, I'm the Messiah, they wouldn't believe him. Because they expect somebody who stopped obedience to the Torah, goes to church on Sunday and eat ham at Christmas. You know, so someone like Antiochus Epiphanes. You know, so it's really important to realize that. Someone like Constantine. Constantine is the guy who actually outlawed anything Jewish within the Christian congregations. He made it against the law, heretical. You get excommunicated if you do it. And you know what? Today, many Christians profess the confession of faith through the Nicene Creed. Do you know who wrote that? Constantine. The Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. This is the one that Jews are bad race. The basics of Christian anti-Semitism. People don't know that. So it's important to realize that we've got to know who is the Messiah, so we can recognize him. You know, it's so important. It's more important to study the original Messiah. What does he look like? Even that doesn't matter too much. But what does he feel like? What does he smell like? There's a verse about the fragrance of Messiah. What does his word do to us? What does he promote? You know, it's really important to know that. There's so many voices who fight for our attention these days. But if we have this discernment, if we know the Messiah, if we know our God, if we know who he is, we prevail. He said, the people shall be strong in this day, the people who know their God. I think that's Daniel 11:33. Now, here's another way that the Antichrist copies Messiah. In Matthew 24, 23 and 24, Yeshua says, if someone, as one of the end-time midrash, he says, at that time, if someone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe him. He's talking about the end of time. He's answered the question, what shall be the sign? Don't believe him, for there will appear false messiahs and false prophets performing great miracles. False messiahs, false prophets performing miracles. That's not new. In Numbers, it says, when you see a man who tells you to not go to and he does miracles, don't follow him. So doing miracles is really not a sign of Messiah. It's really not even a sign of spirituality. If you don't believe me, go in India. Go travel in India. You'll see all kind of Africa, you know, I tell you. But, so he says, there will be false messiahs, false prophets performing great miracles, amazing things, so as to fool even the chosen, if possible. Like it's so many times, there's this guy who does some miracles there, and everybody goes, like it's a sign of anything. Somebody's lifestyle is a sign of their godliness. Do they forgive? Do they go about their own passions and carnality? Do they obey? Do they live by Matthew 5, 6, and 7? That should be the litmus test, not miracles. So he says, well, in the same way that there are many who claim to be the Messiah, even today, there are many people who are defined as the Antichrist. If you go on Google, you'll find plenty of them. Exactly like with the Messiah. And what that does, it murks the water of truth. It murks the water. You see, somebody brings a couple of these signs. They say, you see, because of that. Wait a minute, it's got to fit the whole profile. It's got to fit the whole profile. There is more to that profile. There is one that says, you shall not have the love of women. I don't know what that means. There's other ones that we need to study the profile of Messiah and we can learn to recognize the Antichrist by reading his profile. So, what this does, it creates chaos. And the devil creates chaos to confuse us. But God is not a God of chaos, he's a God of order. He creates order out of chaos. That's the story of creation. In the beginning there was chaos in the middle. But the devil likes chaos because when everybody's flirting around, they can do his dirty tricks. And there's everybody, and then he's there. Nobody's watching. This is really what goes on. And we got to get yourself focused on learning the word. So, is that to say? Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you that we can read your word and we can learn. We thank you that your word helps us to know who is Messiah. Lord, teaches us how to recognize him, how to smell him. But it also teaches us how to recognize he who pretends to be the Messiah. We need to help us to continue learning about these things so we be ready if these things happen during our days. But if they don't, help us to learn it so we can teach others of the next generation, our children, grandchildren, or even other people from the next generations. These words have been given to us for a reason. They've been given to us to help us be ready. Hashem Yeshua Mashiach. Amen.